I am Shay, a 39-year-old housewife. After graduating from college, I worked hard leveraging my qualifications, but in my late 20s, I was hospitalized with a serious illness and unfortunately had to quit my job. However, after being discharged, I met my current husband through a friend and got married. I've been supporting my busy husband as a housewife. When we got married, both my husband and I were 30 years old, so we immediately started trying for a child. We struggled to conceive, but in our second year of marriage, I finally got pregnant. To our surprise, it was twins. My husband was overjoyed to have 2 children at once. During my pregnancy, we spent a busy but happy time preparing baby supplies for 2 and moving to a bigger house. We discussed names every day, but our happy days didn't last long. The husband I trusted so much betrayed me in an unimaginable way. My pregnancy was progressing smoothly, but at 7 months, I was diagnosed with threatened preterm labor and hospitalized again. I was on a 24-hour drip, praying every day that both babies would be born healthy. My husband, always busy with work, rarely visited me. Despite my anxiety, I managed to hold on until the due date and gave birth successfully. Childcare was far more challenging than I expected. Not only was I inexperienced, but I also had 2 babies to take care of, and my biggest problem was that my husband was hardly ever home. Since the children were born, my husband's work had become even busier. He worked overtime almost every day and often went on business trips even on weekends. I wanted to ask my parents for help, but they lived far away, so I had to rely on my in-laws. However, they were still working and could only help occasionally. My husband, saying he was working, left most of the housework and childcare to me. I was exhausted from a lack of sleep every day. My husband was so happy when I got pregnant. Had his feelings changed after the birth? Even though he was busy with work, he had no sense of fatherhood and treated childcare as someone else's problem. I was alone day and night, dealing with 2 crying babies, and often found myself in tears. One day, my frustration exploded. That day, one of the twins had a fever, and I was busy nursing him. The other one was fine, so taking them to the hospital was tough. In such a situation, my husband casually said,
"I'm going to be home late today because of a party."
"Can you really go drinking at such a difficult time?" I glared at him. Moreover, it wasn't a business-related gathering but a private drinking party with a college friend. My husband didn't understand why I was angry and said,
"I don't need dinner tonight, thanks."
He was about to leave. I grabbed his arm and stopped him. When he looked puzzled, I pleaded, "Please come home early today."
"Why?"
He looked genuinely confused, which irritated me even more. "For the children's sake, please cancel the party." He pouted and said,
"Why do I have to be so restricted?
Then he said,
I have my men's gatherings. You're a housewife, so you should handle the kids. Stop relying on me."
No matter how much I begged, I couldn't change his mind. Left alone at home, I wondered what marriage really meant as I took care of the twins by myself. Since that day, my husband's attitude towards me grew colder. My husband worked more overtime and spent less time at home. Even when he was home, we barely spoke. When I talked to him, he only gave curt replies, playing with his phone during meals. He even started sleeping in a different room from me and the kids. There was no time for us as a couple. Whether he held a grudge against me for asking him not to go to the drinking party or had other issues at work, he never explained why he was so grumpy. Initially, I was concerned about my husband's changes, but as I got caught up in childcare, I gradually stopped caring about his moods. Despite this, as the children grew, childcare became easier. I got used to it, and I started to feel more at ease. After being a housewife for so long, maybe it's time to put the kids in daycare and go back to work? Just as I was thinking this, something happened. One night, after putting the kids to bed, I returned to the living room to find my husband sitting at the table, lost in thought. For once, he spoke to me first.
I have something to discuss.
Wondering what it could be, I sat across from him at the table. Then, he said something unbelievable.
I've fallen in love with someone else, so I want a divorce.
I was speechless. We had just settled into a stable life with our twins, and now he said this? He wanted to leave me and live with her. Apparently, my husband's indifference to our home was partly because he had another woman. He admitted he had been seeing her since I was pregnant. While I was fighting for my life and raising our children, my husband was engrossed in an affair. He claimed to be busy with work, coming home late and going on trips, but he was likely with her. I can't forgive this. I felt a surge of anger and wanted to grab him. But then I thought better of it. Getting angry wouldn't change his mind. His love for me was gone, and he had decided to be with his affair partner. Clinging to such a man would only make me miserable. Even if I forced him to stay, we wouldn't be happy. I felt my heart grow cold and sat back down. I told him, I don't mind getting divorced, but I will demand alimony and child support. I decided to end things cleanly and live with my children. I was ready to go back to work and had prepared to be independent. As long as I solved the financial issue, I'd be fine without him. But then he said something unbelievable.
Why should I have to pay alimony?
I replied, because the divorce is your fault due to your affair. He argued.
No, the divorce is your fault.
He claimed that he cheated because I was too focused on the kids and neglected him, needing another woman to fill the void. I was stunned. Prioritizing himself over our children was utterly selfish. Despite being a father, he left the twins' care to me and ignored them. How could I possibly pay attention to him? Yet he insisted.
I'm the victim here. I won't pay alimony.
Then he stormed out. A few days later, he called me.
I'm bringing a lawyer tomorrow, so be ready.
He sounded triumphant. He had hired a lawyer to fight me over alimony. But I wasn't worried. No matter how skilled the lawyer was, I had no intention of losing. The next day, as promised, my husband arrived with a woman who introduced herself as a lawyer. They seemed unusually close, probably already acquainted. She looked about my age, around 40. I felt I had seen her somewhere before. As soon as she entered the house, she handed me a business card and said, I'm Rachel, an attorney. I'm here to demand alimony from you. The moment I took the card, I realized everything. Ah, I see how it is. I understood and knew I could end this now. All right, if you're ready for this, I won't hold back. I silently stared at the business card, and my husband must have thought he had one. He exchanged a triumphant look with the woman posing as a lawyer.
See, since the lawyer says so, you have to pay the money.
The woman who claimed to be a lawyer twisted her lips into a smug smile. Feeling a deep sense of contempt for her vulgar expression, I spoke to her. What a coincidence. I am also a lawyer. What? The smile instantly vanished from the fake lawyer's face. I continued. The business card you just gave me is actually mine. She was speechless, her face turning pale. I continued. Now that I think about it, we have met before, haven't we? The woman stammered. Ah, are you possibly? She muttered while staring at my face. Sweat began to bead on her forehead. My husband, still clueless about what was happening, watched our exchange in a panic. But as soon as I showed him the business card, he turned pale and exclaimed,
Ah.
Yes, I used to be a lawyer. About 10 years ago, I worked at a law firm, and the woman posing as a lawyer had come for a free consultation. No wonder her face seemed familiar. At the time, she sought advice on repaying her debts. I listened to her story and gave her some advice, but she never returned to the office after taking my business card. I had been worried about her because she seemed quite distressed. Later, I was hospitalized due to an illness and temporarily deregistered as a lawyer, so I had completely forgotten about her. I never expected to meet her again like this. She probably didn't recognize me either. As 10 years had passed, I had lost weight and changed my hairstyle. Approaching her, I said, "It's illegal to pretend to be a lawyer without a license. Would you care to explain this situation?" She clung to my husband's arm, stepping back, but my husband, realizing he couldn't escape, confessed everything. What I heard from both of them left me astounded. The fake lawyer was actually my husband's mistress. She had kept the business card I gave her during the free consultation, thinking it might come in handy someday. Since it had my maiden name, she hadn't realized it was from the wife of her affair partner. When my husband told her he was worried about paying me compensation, she said, "Leave it to me," and pretended to be a lawyer using my old business card. My husband, hearing she had a lawyer's business card, hadn't even bothered to check the name, feeling reassured. In reality, my husband didn't know I used to be a lawyer. Although I had told him when we first met, he thought I was joking and didn't take it seriously. Since I wasn't working at the time, I didn't bother to correct him. He had believed that bringing a lawyer would scare me into paying compensation. Not knowing I was an actual lawyer, he and his mistress staged this ridiculous charade. I could only give a wry smile at their childish scheme. Looking at the two of them standing there exposed, I said, "You will be paying both the compensation and the child support." My husband knelt on the spot.
Shay, please forgive me. Let's not get divorced.
He pleaded with me, hands clasped together. I was shocked. Even with his mistress standing right there, he suddenly switched sides. I glanced at the woman, who glared at him with a demonic expression. I understood her feelings well. She had gone to the trouble of pretending to be a lawyer for him, only to be cast aside when the plan failed. My husband, oblivious to her presence, clung to me and shouted,
"Shay, I need you. Let's be a family again. The kids need a father, too, right? So please, spare me the compensation."
It was clear he only wanted to avoid paying. His pitiful lies made me nauseous. It's too late. Neither I nor the kids need a scumbag like you. Leave with that lawyer. No, that fraudster right now, I said, driving the two of them out. My husband tried to stay, but the furious woman grabbed him by the collar and dragged him out by force. From outside, I could hear her shouting and his screams. It must have been quite a scene. Later, I sent them certified letters. To my husband, I demanded a divorce, alimony, and child support. To the mistress, I demanded compensation as well. My husband ended up with a miserable fate. Depressed after our divorce, he tried to focus on earning money for alimony and support. However, the furious mistress stormed into his workplace and spread the news of their affair, ruining his reputation. Losing his job, already struggling financially, and burdened with debts, he now works as a day laborer, barely scraping by under a younger boss. The mistress, who had quit her job hoping to marry him, found herself in even deeper debt due to my compensation demand. I saw her recently, dressed gaudily, walking arm in arm with an older man. She was likely heading to work at a girls' bar. It's a fitting end for the two who tried to scam me. As for me, I re-registered with the Bar Association and got a job at a law firm. I placed my kids in daycare and returned to work as a lawyer. Though the long hiatus poses challenges, helping those in need is rewarding. I want to show my children what it means to live independently and proudly. Well, everyone, goodbye for now. Thank you for staying with me until the end. How did you like today's story? Please subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.